Yesterday and today, I listened to one of the best outside broadcasts from a radio station nationwide with Cliff Hughes at Denham Town today and yesterday from Tivoli Gardens in West Kingston, where people were paying their respects to the late former Prime Minister Edward Philip George Seaga. What came out of the broadcast from both yesterday and today was the respect that people had, the love that they had, and the interrelationships they had with Edward Seaga. The work that he did in West Kingston and across Jamaica, so that whatever party you support, you cannot fail but to give respect to the work that Seaga did. Yes, there were many things that were done that ought not to have been done. The violence, one cannot hide away from that. But also, one must recognize and pay respect to the efforts he made and the actual work that he did across West Kingston in particular. In West Kingston in particular, but across Jamaica in general. I heard many times the mention of Salt Lane, and I laughed because I was born and grown in Salt Lane, lived in Salt Lane for many years. Left there to come to England. I heard a lady called Cherry mention names in 9.5 and 12 Salt Lane, names of prominent persons who were involved in the Pocomania and revivalist movement that Seaga studied and was involved in. Names like Son Page, Tunkaman, Bobsy Grange, and Nunun. People I knew and grew up with in Salt Lane, West Kingston. And believe it or not, Salt Lane was where Buja Banton was born also, before he moved out. I saw with my own eyes the involvement in the Pocomania and revivalist movement by Eddie Seaga. I watched him jump pucker because one of my sisters was involved in the jumping of Pocomania in 12 Salt Lane and in 9.5 Salt Lane. I heard the creativity that took place there, that existed there and still exists there. People who could sing and dance and get involved in cultural activities. I heard about the musicians, many of the great names that came out of West Kingston that were helped by what Seaga did in the musical sphere and the opportunities they had in West Kingston. The respect that is due to someone like Eddie Seaga must be given no matter which party you are from or who you support. It was also interesting to hear the relationships that Eddie Seaga had with Omar Davis and particularly with Porter Simpson, even though they were from different parties. The respect that was obvious between them should be noted because what is important is that no matter which party one supports, Jamaica belongs to Jamaicans, and every Jamaican has the right to expect their politicians to act for the whole of the communities, the whole of Jamaica, so that people can get the opportunity to develop their talents, their skills, to get employment to help their families and to help Jamaica. Anyone, especially around my age in late 70s, who was in West Kingston from 1962 after the before 1962 and since the independence in 1962 cannot fail to accept that many bad things were done in the violent sphere in West Kingston. Young people grew up to know nothing but violence, and it was a shame, a dirty shame, to see some of the things that happened in West Kingston in the late 60s and in the early 70s. Eddie Seaga was a visionary in many ways, and he tried his best to do things so that West Kingston could be developed. The institutions that he helped to create are legendary. Stock Exchange, UDC, National Commercial Bank, just to name a few, were some of the things that the institutions and infrastructure that he helped to create that are still helping Jamaica if used positively. Jamaica is a beautiful country. Jamaica has some prominent politicians, had, still have some prominent politicians with skills. I won't bother to start to name the names. But during the period when there were Dudley Thompson and Norman Manley, Michael Manley rather, Ken Hill, people like those, Eddie Seaga, Jamaica went through a period that history will record as a period not to be emulated, a period of regret, because during that period Jamaica saw some extreme violence. People lost loved ones. I lost a son. Many persons lost people who ought not to have been involved in the dirty politics of that era. But give to Caesar what is due to Caesar. Eddie Seaga did many, many good things, and Jamaica is the better for many of the things that he did. Living in Salt Lane, a poor community in the West Kingston, there were many young people who unfortunately found themselves into gangs and got into violence instead of getting themselves into the zone of education and good employment. They couldn't help it, many of them, as young people, because when you're poor and opportunities are few and far between, and you think if you join gangs that were doing things that seem to be bringing in money and materialism that people strive for and believe were good things, one has to understand, regrettably, why many young persons got themselves involved. But the work of Eddie Seaga should be looked at in a balanced way. And those of us who saw some things that happened that ought not to have happened are tasked with the challenge of saying those things were good, those things were bad, and Eddie Seaga, unfortunately, were involved, if you like, in some of the things that were not good, as well as being involved in many of the things that were good. I'm not saying that he himself did anything particularly bad, but you know, they say the buck stops with the leader when you're in politics and people around you get themselves involved in nefarious activities that ought not to have been there. And Eddie Seaga must be remembered as someone who tried his best, did many good things, but unfortunately had things developed around him that he couldn't control. When I heard the broadcast yesterday in Tivoli Garden, and I heard people saying how much he was loved, how much they respected, loved him, and at the same time accepted that there were some things that were not very nice to remember, I cast my mind back when I was in Salt Lane and things I saw. I saw two brothers, same mother, same father, faced up to each other with guns, telling each other that they were stopping progress. The one name was Ruddy, the other name was Barbara. Friends of mine. And I witnessed this elderly lady took out her breast, spat on her breast, and begged them to stop, and asked if this was what West Kingston was coming to because of politics. Thankfully, those two brothers stopped and respected her and didn't get involved further where they could have killed each other. Eddie Seaga helped many young persons. I witnessed that. He tried his best to uplift educationally a lot of the young people in West Kingston. He gave opportunities to many young persons, sewing machines to some of the young ladies, equipment for youth clubs. One of my youth clubs benefited from some of the equipment. And although I wasn't from the same political party, I respected the work he did, the work he tried to do, and he respected some of the work that I was trying to do in West Kingston. I would like to hope that the politicians of today will look at the infrastructure, the institutions that he helped to create, and to continue to develop in a positive way some of his work. Interestingly, he passed away in the country of his birth, America. And more interestingly, he died on his 89th birthday. I read in a report last week in the Gleaner where a writer wrote that it might have been by contrivance instead of coincidence that he died on his 89th birthday. You know, conspiracy theory is always rife when people of prominence, persons of prominence, pass away on their birthdays, like Eddie Seaga did. I heard today whilst Cliff Hughes from Nationwide was doing his outside broadcast at Denham Town Community Center, some of the things that MP Desmond McKenzie said about the work across West Kingston done by Eddie Seaga. True, I knew of most of the work as I was still living in West Kingston. As a matter of fact, I watched Desmond McKenzie doing very good work in his young days across West Kingston. And I'm still following his work. Again, I say, even though I'm not from that political side. West Kingston should be a better place right now. With its dearth, D-E-A-R-T-H, of creative talents. I won't bother to name the artists that came out of West Kingston. People generally know who they are. West Kingston has the opportunity to develop globally, to be respected globally, if the politicians from both sides of the political divide would only come together to do the work so that people can have good roads, a regular water supply, employment opportunities, and don't get into extremes whereby the party in power don't look after everybody. And I'm talking about both parties. Eddie Seaga deserves a good place in history. On balance, you can put question mark around 10-15% of things that happen in West Kingston that people attributed to him. But at the same time, about 80-90% should be of a positive nature because of the work he did. A very close person to me who was on the PNP political side would face up to Eddie Seaga and curse in politics many times. That person was the mother, the first mother of my children. And Seaga demanded to attend her funeral. P.J. Patterson arranged it. Eddie Seaga attended her funeral, sat up front and spoke at her funeral. Her name was Kathleen Simpson from Hannahtown. This was in January of 2004. For that I respect him very, very much, both in life and in death. And so as a Jamaican, never mind which political party one supports, I say like many others, rest in peace, Edward Philip George Seaga. Your work is noted. Rest easy. God bless.